I'm gonna make a bold claim here, but I'm willing to go as far as to say that outside of top meta loadouts like Mosin Dolch P that have stood the test of time, this loadout is the best possible setup you can take into the bayou as a solo as of the publication of this video. It is excellent in team play as well, of course, but I think it shines most for those willing to brave the bayou alone. I call it the everything loadout, because between the two weapons it functions at every possible range, from scoped all the way down to melee. Good evening, or good day, it all depends, and welcome back to the ImpossibleIronman channel. This setup uses the Lebel Aperture as the primary, essentially giving you a marksman scope you can toggle depending on the range you're fighting at. The secondary is a Drilling Hatchet, which of course requires Quartermaster, giving you a solid mid-range option, a shotgun for close range, and the hatchet for melee. The Lebel has the fastest muzzle velocity in the game, with a base of 630 meters per second, upgraded to a whopping 850 meters per second with Spitzer ammo, making it the closest you can get to a hit scan weapon in Hunt, in addition to greater penetration power than standard ammo. That being said, I still prefer the base ammo for the more consistent 2-tap and easier resupply, but if you're confident in your ability to land headshots, then Spitzer may be the choice for you. On the Drilling Hatchet, I prefer to use Dumum rounds on the rifle mode and slugs on the shotgun mode. Medium ammo rifles apply immediate intense bleed when using Dumum rounds, making this a great option to help peel aggressive players off of you or your teammates. The slugs, of course, will help one-tap enemies when hitting the upper torso at close range, and the hatchet is available as a last resort. Let's talk pros and cons. As far as the positives go, the obvious first one is versatility. This setup allows you to operate at every range, minimizing potential bad matchups. You also have a mix of ammo types, allowing you to still shoot through walls with the long ammo of the Lebel, while also having the added pressure of bleed rounds on the drilling. In theory, you could reverse these roles as well, using Incendiary rounds on the Lebel, which will ignite hunters without salve skin in one shot up to 40 meters, and FMJ on the hatchet instead of Dumum. When using FMJ rounds on the drilling, damage falloff begins at 40 meters instead of 20 meters, giving it some added power in compound fights. The drilling also has a ridiculous amount of reserve ammo on its primary setting, making it effective in prolonged engagements. While the aperture sight can be more difficult to use than a scope, if you end up on a low visibility map, you're not stuck with a weapon that becomes a hindrance. You can simply toggle the aperture down and play more of a mid-range game. Between the stock of the Lebel giving you a blunt melee option and the hatchet, you also don't need to take a melee tool, freeing up a tool slot for something else. The light melee on the hatchet uses very little stamina when compared to primary melee tools as well, making it excellent at clearing large groups of grunts. I really like taking poison concertina mines, so in the place of a melee tool, if I'm alone, I'll take a flare pistol, and if I'm in a team, I'll take chokes. Sometimes I also take decoy fuses here and use choke beetles in place of chokes. This is all optional, of course, but I think the added flexibility is nice. For drawbacks, there's the obvious point that this setup requires Quartermaster. It is also rather trait-hungry in general, and to get the most out of their aperture you want Iron Eye and Steady Aim. Also yes, these traits both work with the aperture toggled up. Not having something like an uppercut or Sparks pistol to ammo stack with the Lebel can lead to running out of long ammo during a prolonged fight, but bringing an ammo box can help with this if you find yourself running low on the Lebel frequently. Lastly, while the Drilling Hatchet excels in mid-range combat, especially if you know how to kite enemy hunters properly, if a slug fails to one-tap someone at close range, you're gonna have a bad time against multiple enemies. The slugs also have a slow reload time, making close quarters combat against multiple shotgun players very difficult. The hatchet can help here, of course, but if you don't hit the head or upper torso, it will not one-shot someone at full health. It does inflict bleed, though. The hatchet is also lackluster against boss targets unless you have a stamina shot running. With all this in mind, let's discuss how you should play this loadout. I'm going to add my usual disclaimer here first by saying that you should play in a way that is the most fun for you. My advice here is simply a suggestion as to how to play optimally with this setup. I recommend playing this the same way you would if you were playing Lebel Marksman. In other words, get the most out of your aperture sight by finding long-range angles somewhere in the 150 to 175 meter range and continuously rotate around your target in between shots. When playing with teammates, the loadout is designed to operate at medium range very comfortably. But if you're playing solo, you should seek to gain distance from a medium range engagement, instead utilizing the bleed rounds on the drilling to keep players from pushing you as you back up. You might ask, why am I playing this the same way as I would if I had an uppercut? The advantage of this loadout comes into play when it comes to sealing the deal, as the flexibility of the two weapons allows you to take 1v1s with relative ease. If a team is down to its last player, you might struggle trying to finish them off with an all-long ammo loadout, forcing you to stay at range so as to avoid giving a mid or close range player an advantage. With the everything loadout, however, you can play aggressively to finish off whoever is left without worrying too much about what they're playing. With rare exception, you might want to be careful about pushing a nitro shredder. If you get pushed by an aggressive team, the bleed rounds can slow down attempts to attack you from multiple angles, giving you enough breathing room to single out a target with the slugs. This will buy you time to reposition and prevent the aggressive team from playing within their comfortable range. To maximize the efficiency of this playstyle, I prefer to head into the bayou with this setup. We have our obvious medkit, a flare pistol when I'm solo for burning bodies, low visibility maps, and annoying AI like concertina armoreds and hives allows you to instantly burn them at range and is a fairly quiet option for doing so. I really like taking concertina and poison mines personally because, of course, if someone hits a pair of them and they're not running an antidote, it is a guaranteed kill. I prefer to go mostly shots with this loadout, using a fit shot for a quick heal, stamina shot for quick rotations, and a regen for mid-range combat. And of course, I'm a big fan of using beetles personally. When I'm alone, I like using the stalker beetle. It can help add some pressure on someone, especially if you have a team down to its last player and you need to push in and get somebody out of an angle hold. You can hit them with the stalker beetle and force some kind of movement with it. But it's mostly for the obvious scouting purposes, clear the way from point A to point B, and make sure your travels are safe. Of course, if I'm in a team, I will often change this flare pistol either over to chokes or decoy fuses, and if I use decoy fuses, I will change this stalker beetle to a choke beetle. That way I can still put out a burning teammate. Obviously, does not give you as many chances as having multiple choke bombs will, but if you're really that worried about it, you can eventually replace the stamina shot by taking Greyhound and maybe run a pair of choke beetles if it really worries you that much. But again, a lot of this is mostly personal preference. You can also, again, if you run Greyhound and take out the stamina shot, you could replace that with an ammo box as well. There are all sorts of options, but after all, that is the point of the loadout, is flexibility. I was originally going to release this video shortly after the Drilling Hatchet came out, but not too long after came another contender for the primary weapon spot, the Mako Aperture. Is it comparable to the Lebel for the purposes of this loadout? The short answer is no. The Mako suffers at range due to its slower velocity of 510 meters per second, making the use of the aperture sight clunky at best. The Mako shines more in mid-range style fights, but this defeats the purpose of the everything loadout by limiting its versatility. That being said, for the Mako enjoyers out there, I realize that sometimes you just click with a weapon regardless of how it looks on paper. Bottom line, at the end of the day, the Mako is still a long ammo rifle, and long ammo is never really bad. I recently launched a brand new Discord server for my channel, in which you can find all sorts of cool stuff, like resources from my guides, for example, the route maps that I'm designing for my pathing guides. Currently, I have the Stillwater Bayou route map available on there for download. You can also suggest future guides on the Discord, also get clips reviewed, and we, of course, are platform friendly, meaning we don't really care if you play on console or PC. All are welcome. Link is in the description below. Have questions about my guides? Want to get a look behind the scenes as I record these clips? Or do you just want to stop by and say hi? Well, I am live here on the channel Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 8 p.m. MST. All are welcome. Coming soon on the channel, I have the Lawson Delta Pathing Guide, as well as a couple projects that have yet to be announced. So stay tuned, because lots of cool stuff is on the way. In the meantime, though, good hunting in the bayou, everyone, and I will see you all on the next one.